10 Darkest Phases in Africa's History. African history is full of stories of triumph, golden ages, and other high points in human history. Sadly, the continent has also seen some of the darkest phases we've gone through as a species, especially during the age of colonization. From slavery to many of the early genocides of the 20th century, the last few hundred years have been particularly dark for some regions in Africa. Number 10. Sharpeville Massacre. On March 21, 1960, a crowd of about 20,000 black protesters gathered near a police station in Sharpeville, a small town just south of Johannesburg, South Africa. They were protesting the oppressive pass laws that had been in place in South Africa since the early 18th century, which severely restricted the movement of non-whites by requiring them to carry identification documents in restricted areas. The protesters were unarmed and peaceful, only demanding to be arrested for not carrying their passbooks. According to the police's version, however, the demonstrators turned violent at some point, resulting in a shootout that left 69 people dead and 180 wounded. It lasted for about 2 minutes, and the cops reportedly used automatic weapons to gun down the unarmed protesters. Number 9. Mau Uprising. From 1952 to 1960, a group of Bantu-speaking Kikuyu people from south-central Kenya fought a rebellion against the ruling British Empire. Now known as the Mau Uprising, or the Kenyan Emergency in Britain, it was a violent war marked by widespread violence against civilians, as well as retaliatory measures like torture. Like all other colonies fighting for their freedom at the time, the conflict was a result of the dissatisfaction among the native Kikuyu tribe due to factors like racial discrimination, land dispossession, and forced labor by the colonial British government. Number 8. Herero and Namaqua Genocide. The Herero and Namaqua Genocide refers to the mass killing of indigenous people in Namibia by Imperial German forces between 1904 to 07. It started after the local population rebelled against colonial German policies, resulting in a relentless campaign by the Germans to eradicate the indigenous people of the region. According to rough estimates, more than 80,000 natives perished in the massacre, most of them belonging to the Herero and Namaqua tribes, though the real number is probably far higher. Number 7. 1993 Massacre in Burundi. In October 1993, members of the Burundian military launched a coup against the newly elected democratic government led by President Melchior Ndadaye. While his election was seen as a breakthrough moment in Burundi's tumultuous history, the ultimately failed coup resulted in his death, sparking a horrific period of violence between the Hutu and Tutsi communities. The violence was largely directed against the Hutus, as they were seen as supporters of Ndadaye's government. The killings were carried out by the military, police, and armed civilian groups associated with the Tutsis, lasting for several months and resulting in the deaths of an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 people. Many of the victims were killed in their homes and sent to mass graves, while others were targeted in public spaces like churches and schools. Number 6. First Congo War. The First Congo War was a part of a larger war that could be called the deadliest conflict in Africa's history, with an estimated death toll of over 5.4 million people. It was one of the many fallouts of the Rwandan genocide, as the Tutsi-ruled Rwanda hunted suspected perpetrators of the massacre that killed more than 800,000 people back in 1994, most of them Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Number 5. Maji Rebellion. From 1905 to 1907, Germany fought an intense war against the local population in German East Africa, or present-day Tanzania. Named after a local medicine, the rebellion was led by various ethnic groups, including the Ngoni, Hihi, and Yao, who united in opposition to German officials, Arab administrators, rich traders, and other ruling groups in the area. Specifically, it was triggered by the introduction of a German policy that forced the local population to only cultivate cotton, resulting in mass confiscation of land and displacement of people from their native homes. Number 4. War in Darfur. The Darfur conflict is an ongoing humanitarian crisis that began in 2003 in the western region of Sudan. While it's a complex conflict resulting from a combination of political, economic, and environmental factors, at its root, it was the ultimate result of long-seated tensions between the Sudanese government and the non-Arab African population living in parts of the country. Number 3. Algerian War of Independence. From 1954 to 1962, armed groups in Algeria fought against the French in what would become one of the largest rebellions in history, involving more than 500,000 French troops at its peak. The conflict began when the National Liberation Front, or FLN, started attacking French personnel and properties in and around the capital Algiers. Number 2. Igbo Genocide. The Nigerian Civil War, also known as the Nigeria-Biafra War, was a 30-month-long conflict between Nigeria and the secessionist eastern region called the Republic of Biafra, lasting from 1967 to 1970. It was a brutal conflict, resulting in the deaths of at least 1 million people, mostly from the Igbo ethnic group, in the relatively short time that it lasted. Number 1. Congo Free State. The Congo Free State was a privately owned colonial entity, encompassing almost the entire region of the Congo Basin. Created in the 1880s as a private holding of the King of Belgium, Leopold II, the colony lasted for more than 2 decades. The period was marked by oppressive violence against the native Congolese, as Leopold's agents and private militias used brutal methods to force local workers to collect rubber, including torture and mutilation. One of the most infamous practices of the time involved cutting off the hands of Congolese workers who failed to meet their collection quotas on the plantations. While we don't have specific estimates on the number of deaths, the population of the region was reportedly reduced from 20 million to 8 million during this time.